Welcome into Surviving Paradise, the podcast that takes a sometimes serious, oftentimes humorous look at the claim by Jehovah's Witnesses leadership that they are living in a modern day spiritual paradise. I am your host, Stacy Bauman, former elder, ministerial servant, most importantly, a kid raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses throughout the 70s and the 1980s. Warning, we try to have some fun here. There's some healing, there's sarcasm, humor. We even have some tears sometimes on some very serious subjects, but please note it is never meant to offend. And I want to add another disclaimer here. It's been a few months since I did that, and I've gotten a few notes over the last few weeks and months regarding my take on Christianity and the Bible. I want to highlight here for anyone listening, I respect any and all beliefs you may have, but I'm very open about the fact that after well over a decade of study, research, and travel on Christianity and the Bible, I have come to the conclusion that while I respect it as a very important book, I do not believe it was inspired by an almighty God in the heavens. And Christianity, unfortunately, is intertwined with Jehovah's Witnesses and very difficult to separate because they claim to be the only true Christians on earth. So please note when I am making comments, thoughts, or observations, that is my take. I respect that people may believe this. I try to keep it above board, even with my own sarcasm, but at times it just breaks loose. I'm happy to have you here, but please note again, my motive is not to offend Christianity or any other religion. You certainly have the right to believe in what you want to believe, but this show is about Jehovah's Witnesses, and so they're intertwined. All right, there it is. For all those notes I got, now you know, or at least the semi-monthly reminder of that for those who are a little upset that I don't believe in Christianity and that it plays a role in this show. Okay. 1988 was a very good year. I got to tell you, from my perspective, I still had brown hair and I was dressed like Don Johnson on Miami Vice a lot. Yeah, 88 was great. The style, the fashion, everybody was cool. Nobody wore socks with their loafers. We had sport coats over t-shirts. It was awesome. As most who knew me know, I tend to relate every milestone in my life to music. And look, 1988 featured some classics. Guns N' Roses gave us the classic Sweet Child of Mine. Def Leppard encourages us to pour some sugar on me. And then that guy, Rick Astley, told us he was never going to give you up. But most important to this show, we had George Michael singing to us all about faith. Remember that? How appropriate that it was 1988's number one song. You might be thinking, what? Why? Because in 1988, the year it was the last time that the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses gave us an in-depth look into the Bible book of Revelation. That's right, the book they claim was written for them and about them during John's stay on the island of Patmos. I cannot confirm if the Apostle John was suffering from dehydration, psychosis, or he got into some mushrooms on the island, but it matters not. The book it seems to be the target and subject of all apocalyptic religions, and who like to point out is proof of the impending doom to the planet that features beasts, angels, heavenly battles, cosmic cataclysms, and more. 1988 was the last year they commented on it with the Revelation Climax book, the blood red book I conducted in the book study, and we studied 2, if not 3 times, as my memory serves. With each nightmarish detail, Jehovah's Witnesses, via that book, are assured that it's all about the end of this world, and more importantly, it's all about the role the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses has played in the last days and will play in mankind's future on a paradise earth. Did you know this? Scholars didn't. Those who've studied it in Greek and any other way who have been to the archaeological site, no, they didn't know. But we are assured by Jehovah's Witnesses that the book of Revelation is about the 9 guys in upstate New York and those that came before them. And I got to tell you, the Apostle John must look on with great pride from his heavenly throne and just shake his head with sort of a who knew smile as he shrugs and glances around at the other kings surrounding him in heaven, including Chuck Russell and Judge Joe. I can picture the look on his face when he thinks back to writing 1900 plus years ago in advance about how the Cedar Point, Ohio District Convention in 1921, complete with classic foul-smelling district convention bathrooms and according to the governing body, mentioned 8 times in Revelation. Did you know that Cedar Point, Ohio was in Revelation 8 times? And it was also the trumpet blast mentioned in Revelation chapter 8 and verse 7. Thank you, Revelation Climax Book in 88. John, of course, had no clue where Ohio was. And yeah, look, maybe the angels didn't either. He's learning about all of this just like the rest of us. Thank you, New York, and the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses for cluing us in to what this book is about. In what is easily one of the most comically bad books ever published by this organization, is it any wonder that they have gone a little quiet when it comes to interpreting Revelation? I've got a past episode on every book they've done on it. Or that the book is actually out of print now, despite it being food at the proper time in 1988. But take your seats. The long wait is over. You knew they couldn't be quiet for long, after all. These are the all-important last days that never really end, by the way, and the contents of Revelation are critical. But more importantly, its inspired contents all point to them. Them, the 9 guys in upstate New York. The time has come to remind everyone listening that Jehovah makes all things possible through the governing body. And in so doing, the planet's most powerful leaders, the leaders of all political regimes, governments, and lands, are highly interested. They're worried. They're concerned. They are turning their attention to Stephen Lett, Gage Flegel, Jeff Winder, Sam Hurd, and the rest of the men that make our salvation possible. Remember, we only get insight into the book of Revelation because they allow us to. They give us permission, and they're going to tell us what it means. From that blood-red book, Revelation, its grand climax at hand, chapter 44, paragraph 9, the governing body gave us this, quote, "This is a message, first of all, for the congregation of anointed Christians on earth. Everything in Revelation is addressed primarily to anointed Christians who will inhabit New Jerusalem. Through that congregation, the great crowd is also privileged to gain understanding of these precious prophetic truths." End quote. Thanks for bringing us along. They're going to tell us what it means because it's about them. As always, a huge thanks to the humble 9 guys in New York who kindly brought us this information. Just days ago, we sat in on one of the newest king's first weighty assignments in New York. Gage Flegel went on camera to deliver the talk, "There Will Be No Delay Any Longer," currently featured on Jesus' website under the dramatic Bible reading section. An up-to-the-minute look at the book of Revelation. It's been since 88 after all, or as they put it, quote, "See how the thrilling prophecies of the book of Revelation will soon bring justice and lasting relief to those who love Jehovah," based on Revelations chapters 18 through 22. end quote. And I have to say, from the moment you hear the title of the video presentation, you know it's going to be good. For an organization that has a 100% failure rate on anything having to do with timelines, dates, and world events, a fact most Jehovah's Witnesses overlook, the title alone cements their ongoing delusion regarding Revelation and the end of the world, and most importantly, how everyone, every leader, every political empire, everyone that lives there is very, very worried about them. Can't even keep a straight face. Just a heads up, Gage. He's fairly young, by the way, but just attained governing body status, as you know, despite all of us being told that heaven stopped accepting applications for kings way back in 1935. Well, Gage, everything ever taught by the governing body, Gage, it's been delayed. In fact, it's never shown up at all. So the title of this talk is curious. There will be no delay any longer. Is this it? But you're telling us the delay is over? When? How? Can we take this one to the bank? Can we believe in this one? Your failure rate is 100%, going back well over a century. Listen, I'm on pins and needles because this was days ago, and at the time of the recording of this podcast, I don't know. We're still here. Here we are. Does that count as a delay? Gage, did you lie? Wait, oh no, not possible. Gage, are you getting new light even as we record this? We are all holding our breath, and we would all love to exhale now. It's been over 100 years of 100% failure, and might I add, delay. I could summarize everything that follows in this talk with this simple fact. It's all about them. But isn't it always all about them? It's not a surprise here. In 96 AD, as John put his ink to parchment scrolls, he never could have realized that the trumpet blasts, the dragons, the locusts that look like horses wearing crowns of gold with human faces and women's hair and teeth like lion's teeth, all of it, anything, it was all about 9 guys in upstate New York. Hell, John had no clue what New York was or where it was. He didn't even know what a printing press was. But here he is. He's giving us a look into them for our time. Here we are, folks. The governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses is back at it. They're here to remind us that they are major players on the world scene with new, unbelievable illustrations in a talk that is the latest edition of the governing body reminding us about the importance of the governing body. King Flegel leverages the Bible's last book to point out their current and upcoming role in your life. And with this talk, we have reached an all-time level of delusion that continues to keep us entertained, or maybe it's just me. I am very entertained. And I desperately want to believe that this kind of talk and this kind of visual and information, God, we can only hope it jolts more than one Jehovah's Witness into paying attention to what they're really doing to them. This stuff is coming fast and furiously the last few months. They have ripped off the Band-Aid and they are moving into new territory. The governing body has been teaching Jehovah's Witnesses for decades, and it's something you learn from the time you're a kid in the organization, that the timeline for this planet goes something like this. Are you ready? It starts like this. The Great Tribulation begins during the last days. We've been in those last days, incidentally, for a while now. It's been 110 years, but who's counting? The Great Tribulation will hit any second now. And it's here that the Jehovah's Witness obsession with governments begins for you and me. Witnesses are taught from birth that the United Nations and member governments represent a beast that will turn on all religion. From the No Peace for the False Messengers, the Watchtower of May 1st, 1997, pages 17 and 18, we get this, quote, "Shortly, crazed members of the UN will be maneuvered by Jehovah to turn on false religion, as described at Revelation 17:16. This will mark the start of the Great Tribulation." End quote. And with that, we can officially scrap the free will concept at this point, right? Because we're told here that Jehovah is once again maneuvering these governments to slaughter anyone that isn't a Jehovah's Witness. Wait a minute. See the Bible for past examples, by the way. He's done it a lot. With no other religion left, including the billions of Christians, Muslims, and others, only the book cart-toting Jehovah's Witnesses will remain, because they're the only ones devoted to true religion, after all. And well, that is really going to piss off the world's governments. If you're following on the timeline, stay with me. Then, as can be seen on the website under Bible Questions Answered section on the Great Tribulation, please access that at free will. Those same governments can end their sleepless nights of worry, their stress, their anguish, all about that publishing company in New York by doing the following, quote, "Attack on True Religion" is the subheading under the Bible Questions Answered section. It says, quote, "A coalition of nations, referred to in Ezekiel's vision as Gog of the land of Magog, will try to annihilate those who practice true religion. However, God will protect his worshipers from destruction." End quote. I think anybody listening, or anyone that's been associated with the Witnesses for any amount of time, knows this timeline. It's almost tattooed on our brain. Lots and lots of Watchtower studies all regarding that timeline. Last days, Great Tribulation, all of the religions whacked by world governments, then Jehovah turns and whacks the world governments. There you go. But from the Watchtower of 2022 in May, pages 15 through 19, aptly titled series Revelation, What It Means for Your Future, says this, quote, "Truly, Jehovah's faithful servants will stand out as different during that desperate time of tribulation. They will still be the only group of people on earth serving Jehovah God and refusing to give their support to the wild beast. Their firm stand will provoke the rage of those who oppose Jehovah. As a result, a coalition of nations will attack God's people all over the earth. This act of mad aggression is described prophetically as the attack of Gog of Magog." End quote. And it continues in the Watchtower of 2015, July 15th, pages 14 through 19, the series Your Deliverance is Getting Near. Paragraph 7, quote, "What will happen after the destruction of false religious organizations? It will be a time to reveal what is really in our heart. The majority of mankind will seek refuge in human organizations that are likened to the rocks of the mountains. Figuratively speaking, however, God's people will flee to the refuge that Jehovah provides. In the first century, the interval was not a time for a mass conversion of Jews to Christianity. This has recently changed. It was a time for action and obedience on the part of those who were already Christians. Note this, quote, "Similarly, we cannot expect that the future interruption in the Great Tribulation will result in an influx of new believers. Rather, it will be an opportunity for all true believers to prove their love for Jehovah and give their support to Christ's brothers. End quote. Want to take a guess at whose Christ's brothers are? 9 guys in upstate New York. And well, like Noah, there he is. I did it. We should not expect for common sense people who at that point will have witnessed all of the religions wiped from the face of the earth to look at the only one remaining, Jehovah's Witnesses, and their 9 leaders, and think, hey, I don't know, they're the only ones left. Maybe those Jehovah's Witnesses had something after all. Or should we? See last year's annual meeting on last-second conversions. We would not be upset, would we, if a bunch of people just ran to the ark? Once Jehovah partners with the governments to wipe out non-Jehovah's Witnesses, including the church-going kid next door that you play with and ride bikes with, Jesus judges the rest of us on this timeline. We are back to being like animals again, sheeps or goats. By the way, you want to be a sheep, see past episodes. But then Stephen Lett, David Splain, and even the recently demoted Toni Morris, they then all fly away to heaven because, well, Jesus needs them. He needs them. He needs those guys for what happens next. With the governing body all in heaven, no doubt hugging the original 12 apostles and backslapping Lazarus, glad to see him, Jehovah and Jesus hand those guys some fireballs. They hand them the power to create earthquakes and hailstorms. And so begins Armageddon, where those guys will kill everyone that didn't believe in the publishing company's best stuff. And you guessed it, this especially includes all of those governments, the political empires, otherwise known as the 7-headed wild beast in the book of Revelation, and who Jehovah used to wipe out all other religions. Not sure why. Couldn't he have just wiped them all out himself? Couldn't he have just wiped out the religions and governments together? Nope. There's a timeline. I don't know. He seems to like watching his people go through persecution. So the religion's gone, the government stay. He wipes them out separately. That's the timeline. But make no mistake, Jehovah's Witnesses have long been obsessed with how governments, politicians, and world leaders view them. Yes, you heard that correctly. World powers, reaching all the way back to Egypt, have always been very, very concerned with Jehovah's Witnesses and those that led up to them. We got Babylon, we got Assyria, we got Rome, we got Greece, we got big images with clay feet, we got flying rocks, we got trees with bands, we got plagues, all sorts of heavy interests in how governments of select time periods throughout history view Jehovah and his people. And today, that's Jehovah's Witnesses. The organization has a bizarre relationship with government and politics. They want you to know at every opportunity that Satan is controlling government and politics, but they then leverage and use the benefits of government at every opportunity in their daily life. This includes everything from their passports to building permits to court cases with the Supreme Court of the United States. They leverage government, but the government is a beast. That has continued in modern times and goes deep into the organization's history. For anyone willing to spend a few minutes, you can view the long history of obsession with government in just the past 2 centuries. From the early 1900s, and particularly under that illustrious leader, Judge Joe Rutherford, currently in heaven. Thanks for listening, Joe. The organization has been obsessed with how governments view them, and as you might have guessed, particularly the leadership team, not just a schmo, it's not you and me. The history of what they taught about their relationship to world powers has been really, really sordid. Judge Joe was a pretty calculated, smart guy. And if you look back at the literature during his time period, he goes on tirades against governments, including, which almost no Jehovah's Witness will know today, including writing a letter to Adolf Hitler in 1933, voicing his support for the Nazis' effort to deal with those pesky Jewish people. It was nothing new for Jesus' handpicked guy. He had already been sharing his anti-Semitic feelings before. It was nothing new. The Golden Age of 1927, February 23rd, page 343, says this, quote, "Be it known once and for all that those profiteering, conscienceless, selfish men who call themselves Jews and who control the greater portion of the finances of the world and the business of the world will never be the rulers in this new earth. God would not risk such selfish men with such an important position." End quote. What a brain fart. Apparently, Judge Joe forgot the governments are all out to get him and his guys anyway. And might this type of rhetoric, might it have inflamed the persecution to so many precious, innocent Jewish people, as well as Jehovah's Witnesses during the Holocaust? Maybe? I mean, could it have pissed off Hitler? What a guy that Judge Joe was. He's got a fireball with your name on it, by the way, coming soon. Hold your breath. The leadership of Jehovah's Witnesses, even before they had the title governing body, has long pitched how governments, the UN, the League of Nations, how they all just sit around contemplating what they're going to do with this all-powerful group of guys in upstate New York that knock on your doors on a Saturday and interrupt cartoons to hand you magazines featuring a paradise fantasy not taught by Jesus anywhere in the Bible. That's right. Nations are losing their minds about those people who won't eat birthday cake. And Gage Flegel is counting the trend and continuing the trend in this dramatic Bible reading that was just released. Not kidding. That's what it's called on the website, dramatic Bible reading. And wow, they are really at this point doubling down on all of this. In recent years, the governing body, in their make-believe, fear-mongering view of how governments view them, is being taken to a whole new level. This talk is one indication of the level that they're going to make it all about them. And I'm going to bluntly state it here. It's a pure fantasy. It is a fantasy land. The governing body has included all Jehovah's Witnesses at this point in their ego-filled fantasy. You see, world leaders controlling billions of people, billions of dollars, and billions of economic, social, and healthcare issues are most concerned with those people who passionately believe and preach that two naked people kicked this whole thing off after meeting a talking snake, that a 600-year-old guy jammed the entire animal kingdom on a boat and floated around for a year, that a guy can live inside a fish for 3 days, and on and on and on. But more importantly, in 2024 and moving forward, world governments are panicking. They're panicking. They're freaking out, people, and very angry about those people standing in front of a book cart at your local park and virtually ignoring you as you walk by, hoping beyond all hope that you won't walk up and ask them to explain the blood doctrine, shunning, or what the hell an overlapping generation is. They're petrified of this. Anyone can look back at the last 10 years. Just take a 10-year snapshot of spiritual paradise, and you can see their fantasy born out in video. This video piece, this studio, the JW Broadcasting, has made this entire dynamic so accessible for anyone to watch. Then, looking back, let's take a snapshot for a few minutes here. Looking back since video has come on the scene for God's people, if you just look back at the last few conventions, let's start in 2021. The Powerful by Faith convention of Jehovah's Witnesses, Sunday morning, featured a montage of flat out crazy. It was a montage of crazy that includes a young brother stressing out about whether he will be strong enough to withstand persecution when the government in his land turns on him for being a Jehovah's Witness. They're very worried. Scenes complete with music from a spy movie, not kidding, of him going to his daily coffee cart and glancing nervously at the policeman on the sidewalk behind him, or reading his Bible on his phone and looking around suspiciously as possible to see who might be watching him read something on his phone. Then he is seen watching a TV news report with soldiers pointing machine guns and warning of restrictions on Jehovah's Witnesses. It's made the news now. The music picks up as fear covers the young man's face. He then leaves a train station and almost hides because, well, he walks out the door and there are soldiers at the train station with guns. And you know they have nothing else to do in that country but look for a Jehovah's Witness. But it must be because Jehovah's Witnesses ride trains, right? I don't know. He then briefly goes to his regular coffee cart and shows his strong stance, his integrity, and his bravest face as he secretly starts to witness to the barista behind the cart. Policeman went in the train station. Now's my chance. It's absurd. And they're pumping this stuff out to Jehovah's Witnesses now. And easily one of the most disturbing anti-government propaganda pieces in recent memory, I introduced to you the 2018 music video. If you haven't seen this, please go watch it. I can't do it justice. 2018 music video called Give Me Courage. You can incidentally find it currently on Jesus' website, where we are treated to a montage of brothers and sisters in an open field somewhere. No clue why or how they got into this open field. They're just in an open field. We get to see what problems they faced in the real world as they think back to the things they overcame as a witness in the past. Things like school and bullies, health problems. And of course, they mix in a Bible character, staff in hand, sweating it out, as soldiers with spears run right past him and he breathes a sigh of relief. But then it whisks us back in the video to modern Jehovah's Witnesses as mass soldiers work their way through the forest to this field. I don't know. They're coming through the forest. There's a handful of them because the witnesses are out in a field pointing machine guns at a defenseless group of Jehovah's Witnesses that includes elderly women, small children, and a group of really intimidating brothers wearing sweater vests. I don't know. As the soldiers close in with their guns drawn, we look to the sky where Kenny Rogers and his clone army show up with bows and arrows. The music reaches a crescendo. The end. That's it. You see, governments are very concerned about the book-pushing people in that field. Guns are drawn. We're going to get them. And this is what they feed Jehovah's Witnesses. This was debuted, I believe, at the district convention in 2018. In the 2016 Remain Loyal to Jehovah District Convention, we were treated to dramatizations that almost cost me a rib. I was laughing so hard it hurt. By now, most people have seen these videos. They feature Jehovah's Witnesses hiding in a bunker. I was waiting to see if Jehovah's Witnesses were going to start building bunkers after the convention. Again, showing a montage of how they all overcame personal challenges to make it into that bunker, dare I say, modern day Ark, and even include a guy in the story and video that just didn't want to waste his life knocking on doors and handing out their books. So he's not there, but they talk about him. And you know what that means. The governing body watching on from heaven, they're going to kill him. He didn't make it into the bunker. The video even shows Jehovah's Witnesses that they're going to need secret door knocks to get into the bunker, where they will be protected by a middle-aged elder who looks a lot like a tax accountant who has never been to a gym. But at least his necktie is loosened to show us all how stressed out he is. He's the leader of the group. Oh, and I might add, as the video ends, he has a real mean look on his face when the soldiers break down the door and they close in on his group standing behind him in the bunker. They finally captured those people that stand by those book carts in the train station, in public. Wait a minute, why didn't they just grab them there? Never mind, don't put your thinking cap on. This is what the governing body is pumping out to Jehovah's Witnesses. Governments, revelation, and all that comes with them are interested in them. And I'm here to admit it's one of my favorite and one of the funniest things the 9 guys in upstate New York are teaching today. Even Gage Flegel's video, which is the subject of this episode, is unbelievably funny. I never thought anything would make me laugh as hard as the illustration in 2018's The Pure Worship book, page 187, paragraph 19. Go check it out. I've used it in some of the stuff on this show before. It's an illustration of a war room in what looks like another secret bunker, filled with leaders from various countries, some in full military uniforms, sitting at a table with what looks like watchtowers thrown all over it, pointing, yelling, and dialing phones in what looks like a stressed out panic. This illustration features one of the best things I've ever seen. Those are not the best parts. You don't have to look too closely at the monitors on the wall to see they feature kingdom halls, Warwick headquarters, people preaching, and my favorite, governing body member Sam Hurd. These leaders are losing their minds. They're watching the very dangerous and intimidating Sam Hurd. Oh yes, the world is imploding. You've just destroyed all religions at this point, and now a collection of the world's most powerful leaders must turn their attention to a guy who reads a teleprompter and mans a book cart on Saturdays. But who can forget all of King Sam's bravado during the 2021 annual meeting? No wonder they're watching him when he says, quote, "Many of us anointed ones are too old to fight, even if we were allowed to. But in heaven, we will be mighty, immortal spirit creatures, fighting alongside our warrior king, Jesus Christ. Believe me, we can do more significant good for you in heaven than we ever did as imperfect human creatures on this earth. So when the anointed are called to heaven, one of their first assignments is to fight." Grrr. End quote. I'm not kidding. He smiles after saying that in 2021 on camera and makes a grrr sound as he smiles. He just can't wait to kill people. He can't wait. But fight? Like, when he says that, what fight? Isn't this a one-sided battle? The governing body and God himself whacking those pesky world rulers that are so worried about Sam because he might just be an imperfect guy on earth now, but when he gets to heaven, he's going to be a mighty morphin power. He's going to be mighty. And this sure explains why the US, Russia, China, and the entire Middle East are no doubt on their hot phones discussing what to do about Sam and his 8 pals in New York, right? Imagine how they feel when they see the photos of these guys coupled with video showing them as an all Caucasian male army minus armor. They're just wearing white togas, riding horses in the clouds, armed with bows and arrows. I mean, world governments must be stressed out of their minds when they see these images. This is what our future looks like? These guys are going to get us? They likely look at each other in the secret war room and realize that their nuclear bombs are useless against bows and arrows and the all-Caucasian male heaven army. The authorities have been put on notice by Sam Hurd. No wonder he is seen in the Pure Worship book on the television monitor. He's a scary guy. He has clearly scared the shit out of today's world leaders, and they want you to know it. The 9 guys in upstate New York have really gone on the offensive with this messaging. And it makes me wonder if Jehovah's Witnesses are also afraid of them. I mean, if you're a witness sitting out there, a kid, or you're listening to this, and there's soon to be superhuman powers that Sam just told us they'll soon have. You got to wonder what kind of an impact this is having on a witness. Just a few months ago, they pounded the point home. In the Watchtower of 2024 in February, page 7, paragraph 15, "I will never abandon you," is the article. We get this, quote, "So, when the last of the anointed on earth are taken to heaven near the end of the Great Tribulation, one of their first assignments will be to fight." Yeah, we heard Sam tell us that. Not sure who's fighting. It sounds one-sided. Back to the quote, "What a remarkable assignment. Some anointed Christians were fighters before they became Jehovah's Witnesses. Some even served in the armed forces of this world. But later, they became true Christians and learned the way of peace. They put aside all physical warfare. However, after being raised to heaven, they will serve along with Christ and his holy angels, waging the final war against God's enemies." End quote. And if you're wondering how powerful David Splain, Stephen Lett, and the boys will be, they give us the following. Going back to 88, Revelation, its grand climax at hand, pages 52 through 54 tells us, quote, "This authority that anointed conquerors receive at their resurrection is a sharing with Jesus in wielding the iron rod of destruction against the rebellious nations at Armageddon. At best, the nuclear firepower of those nations will sputter like a wet firecracker when Christ dashes his enemies to pieces as he would vessels of clay." End quote. The same guys that denounce war and even video games for kids will soon get to crush human beings. And, well, nuclear bombs? Stephen Lett laughs in your face at your nuclear bombs. They will sputter like wet firecrackers. This is what the governing body has been teaching for centuries, but especially in 88 in the book that fired up Gage Flegel in this video. They get to destroy everyone. And as you can see from Sam Hurd, he's very excited about it. On and on this message goes. And I got to tell you, from the time I was young as a Jehovah's Witness, contemplating that timeline that is still unfortunately burned on my brain, I can't help but wonder, is there not one guy, just one? We'll take one. We'll take anybody. Is there not one guy in that room in upstate New York who thinks, hey, fellas, this is pretty delusional? I mean, when is the last time we even spoke to a president of any country? Hey, are we going off the rails here a little bit? Not one. There isn't one guy that kind of sits up straight in his chair after listening to this stuff, that Sam Hurd will soon be mighty, that they'll all be in togas with bows and arrows killing all the rest of us. Not one? There's now one guy. And there it is. And I wonder if they threw their names into a hat to see which one of them got to be featured on the TV monitor in their current Bible study aid, or did they just leave that up to the illustrator to pick one of them too? I don't know. Again, it's mind-blowing to me that not one of these guys looked around the room during these conversations and started laughing at this. How did they not laugh? We will become mighty. What are they, the Avengers? Not one of them remembered. Not one of them. Remember, they're Bible scholars who teach us, but not one of them remembered or thinks about Jesus' last night on earth, sitting in a room similar to the one they're in, watching his apostles and allegedly the original governing body, remember, fighting over which one of them was the greatest. No one remembers this account. For anyone listening, including those who might be listening in that are on their way to heaven, you can find that account at Luke 22:24 through 30. Oh, the incredible power of the narcissistic, delusional ego on these guys. It's incredible. I'm now openly admitting I'm going to do something I did for 8 years as the Watchtower study conductor. I'm going to take a ridiculous photo or illustration, and I'm going to build an entire narrative around it. Do you remember your conductor doing this? Let's look at the photo on page 7. What can we learn from this photo? You remember those days? Mining out every detail, including the color of the person's socks and how they relate to 607 BCE, or the color of their hair and how it identifies them with Satan's system of things. Literally dissecting photos in the Watchtower study. I'm going to do it. Here we go. And now for the illustration, one so absurd that I am borderline speechless. I didn't actually believe this was even real the first time I saw it. And I saw it on social media, I believe. But here it is. Drenched in delusion. If you haven't seen this, please go watch the video, Gage Fliegel's video on Revelation. Or if you don't want to do that, and I don't blame you, you can see it on the tile of this crazy show on our YouTube channel. But it is a must-see if you haven't seen this. It comes to us at the 13-minute, 49-second mark of King Fliegel's video presentation. In an illustration that is meant to look like an exact representation of the United Nations Security Council chamber, not kidding, we all get to see the real fear the 9 guys in upstate New York strike in the hearts of today's world leaders. There, featured in the illustration on the monitors for all to see, is the faces of 4 governing body members: David Splain, Jeffrey Jackson, Kenneth Cook, I don't know how he snuck in there, and Mark Sanderson, not yet with a beard, we need an update, including an awesome product placement for Jesus' website. It's all on the screen in what looks like the United Nations Security Council chamber for those of us that have been to the UN. It's an exact representation. The leaders are going nuts in the illustration. They're angry. They're shouting. Some of them have fists in the air. They did include women, which was nice for a change. One leader has the floor, and he's pointing at their pictures as the rest of the world's leaders scramble for their nuclear codes. Little do they know that those won't hurt those guys. They're wet firecrackers, according to Revelation Climax. And even if they do blow them up, they reappear instantly in heaven, all looking like a Jesus clone army anyway. By the way, at that point, they're going to be pissed. In a twinkling of an eye, they go from smiling photos on the UN television monitors to heavenly executioners. Only now they've kicked their book carts out of the way, and Jesus arms all 4 of them with fireballs, hurricanes, earthquakes, and stuff. And according to this illustration in this video, the world leaders know this. Not sure how. Maybe Satan alerts them, the one who signed up to get killed. And they're worried. They're really worried. Undoubtedly, for us old timers, the Anglo-American world power guys and gals all look at each other and jump on their cell phones to call James Bond and Jason Bourne. That's what I got out of it. You're going to need them both when you're fighting David Splane and Kenneth Cook. We need the best of the best. And as I do, just a reminder, Jehovah is directing them to print these illustrations. He's directing them. You must show this to Jehovah's Witnesses. It is Jehovah that wants to put the world on notice for not listening to his favorite 9 guys in upstate New York. It is an illustration that will live in infamy. It is beyond hilarious. But just remember, this is from Jehovah, if you're a witness listening. In the Watchtower of 2010, September 15th, page 13, paragraph 8, Unity identifies true worship as the article. We're told, quote, the governing body publishes spiritually encouraging literature in many languages. This spiritual food is based on God's word. Thus, what is taught is not from men, but from Jehovah. End quote. So if you're keeping track at home, and you've seen this illustration, and if not, please go look. A Jehovah's Witness is supposed to look at these pictures, these illustrations, and they are supposed to take them very seriously. Vladimir Putin is terrified of Jeffrey Jackson. So is Joe Biden, even King Charles. They often get on the phone together and talk about, what are we going to do about Stephen Lett? There was actually a time in this organization where they put on the pretense of being humble. It seems like such a distant memory. But there was, when I was a kid, there was the pretense of humility. Even though it didn't take much to scratch the surface and see that that was all BS too. But in recent years, we have even learned that there are museum paintings of each of them at Bethel. You can see them in videos, portraits like you're in the Louvre, looking at the guys who've been on the governing body. Humility has given way to fantasy. Pure fantasy. Power trips, whatever you want to put to it. Remember when the same guys you see on the TV monitors actually said this? In the Watchtower of 2020 in January, page 28, paragraphs 5 through 7, we will go with you. It tells us, quote, Jehovah's Holy Spirit helps his servants to be humble, not proud. So anointed ones do not feel that they are better than others. They know that Jehovah does not necessarily give anointed ones more Holy Spirit than he gives his other servants. They do not feel that they have a deeper understanding of Bible truths than anyone else. Can you believe that's in print? Quote, they do not feel that they have a deeper understanding of Bible truths than anyone else. The quote continues, and they would never tell someone that he too has been anointed and should start partaking at the memorial. Instead, they humbly acknowledge that only Jehovah invites people to go to heaven. Although anointed ones feel that it is an honor to be invited to go to heaven, they do not expect others to treat them in a special way. They also know that when Jehovah anointed them, he did not let everyone else know about it. End quote. The Watchtower of 2020, January, page 28. There it is. They're so humble. They're going to be Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in heaven with bows and arrows. They're going to kill the most powerful people and political empires on the planet. But they don't think they're special. They don't think they know anything more than anyone else. And they don't even want you to know that they're special and anointed by Jehovah. What? Here we are. Here we are. Sam Hurd got a cameo a few years ago. Now we get these four on the monitors in this illustration in 2024. But they're not special. But not only does everyone know who they are and treat them as special, apparently, even to be feared, apparently, Jehovah does want everyone to know who they are, especially the world's governments. They're coming for you after all, so get a good look at their faces. It's just unbelievable. The level of delusion is at a fever pitch with these guys. And with the limited time we have here, I must say, aside from the comedy and sarcasm and the fascination, as we watch their delusion play out on the world stage, how about the fact that they print this stuff? They actually put to print forever, immortalized, claims that the world's governments fear them and that Jehovah's Witnesses must remain neutral, even die, than support these governments, claiming they're all in Satan's hands after all. But then, these same guys have the nerve to inexplicably demand that these same governments give them their money, free money. From Religious News Service, January 16th, 2024 online, if you've been following Norway in that situation, we get this, quote, in January 2022, Valgerd Svarstad Hugland, hope I said that correctly, the county governor of Oslo and Viken in Norway, denied Jehovah's Witnesses state grants for the year 2021 in response to concerns about what she perceived as exclusionary practices. The Jehovah's Witnesses had received the grants, which currently amount to around $1.5 million annually for 3 decades. These funds are typically used for international disaster relief work and supporting religious activity in Norway, including translating literature and building kingdom halls, according to Jorgen Peterson, spokesperson for Jehovah's Witnesses in Norway. End quote. You see, folks, the governing body, including the four guys in Gage Flegel's great illustration, not only expects world leaders to fear them, what's coming, knowing they're going to kill them and wipe them from the earth, as Sam Hurd said, but they also expect these same governments to give them their money. Not necessarily in that order. In fact, give us the money first, if you would. We'll wipe you off the face of the earth later, in fact, any second now. Welcome to the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses. Listen, if you're a Jehovah's Witness listening, it's my hope that you will consider a few facts here. I think we need a quick reality check on the world's fear or upcoming fear of the 9 guys in upstate New York. Allow me, please, to put it to you bluntly. The world's governments could care less about Jehovah's Witnesses. They only get attention when they discover that Jehovah's Witnesses and their leadership are breaking laws. It's been that way throughout history. It's never changed. Dodge a draft in the past? Busted. Harming children? You have our attention. Taking away basic human rights by shunning people? Acting like a cult? The government where you live will, and hopefully will, pay attention. Believing that those same governments are afraid of what Stephen Lett is going to do to them? Well, I got bad news for you. I got real bad news. I'm hoping that any Jehovah's Witness that looks at these recent illustrations, whether it's the old one with Sam or the new one with the four guys, I mean, who's up next? There's four guys who haven't been pictured. They got to be pissed off. Uh, But any Jehovah's Witness that looks at this in this video and doesn't bust out laughing will at least consider the following as they gaze upon the governing body fantasy. It might just be a lie. Will you consider it? It might just be a lie. There's an outside chance that the world's governments are maybe at least, a little distracted by other things. Things that don't include a very tiny religion that shuns its own people if they eat birthday cake. For example, consider what the world's governments may really be concerned with. According to the site, the Geneva Academy on International Humanitarian Aid and Human Rights, they have a portal on the site that is fascinating. It measures all armed conflicts on the planet Earth by the day. At the time of this recording, the week of May 13th, 2024, tragically, there are over 110 armed conflicts taking place on the planet right now. In the Middle East and North Africa, there are more than 45 armed conflicts. In other parts of Africa, there are more than 35 armed conflicts. In Asia, there are 21 armed conflicts. In Europe, there are 7 armed conflicts. In Latin America, there are 6 armed conflicts. Is there a chance that when government officials go into their secret chambers, that they may be discussing the reality of current violence, wars, famine, socioeconomic disasters, immigration, other things? Or as a witness or anyone that watched Gage Flegel's video pumping out info on Revelation, are they gathering inside their secret rooms to discuss their deep concern for 9 guys who just let their men grow beards for the first time in a while, and they told women it's okay if they want to wear pants in the same year of 2024? The same guys that have a video of Caleb and Sophia telling kids that they should give them their ice cream money and bypass the scoop. It's unreal. And it's out there on video with Gage Flegel. The first time since '88 he wants to unpack Revelation to this degree. Or, in this subject and in considering all that it entails, could all of this, all the videos, all the cool illustrations of government war bunkers and war rooms, all the fear-mongering, the dramatic music, witnesses being surrounded in a field, that these 9 guys publish about themselves, could it actually be something more like this? From childhood roots of narcissistic personality disorder, nipping a toxic mental illness in the bud, by Brian Johnson, PhD, and Lori Birdall, MD, January 29, 2017. We're given this, quote, "Narcissists are arrogant and preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited self-importance, success, and power, including that they alone can do something, and exaggerate their accomplishments and popularity. They exploit to take advantage of people for personal gain, including feeding their egos, and thus require excessive admiration. They pit people against each other to get what they want. They divide people to conquer and gain power over them. They manipulate others by influencing emotions like fear and anger, and with threats and lies. Another manipulation technique used is redefining reality by repeatedly fabricating fiction and arguing about it as if it were fact, such as presenting alternative facts, which leads listeners to question their own understanding of reality. Victims often experience a twilight zone sensation that is accompanied by anxiety. End quote. Does any of that sound familiar? Surely a discreet slave wouldn't publish illustrations of world governments cowering in fear as they try to protect their national interests from an onslaught of book carts featuring a hope only seen in a Disney movie, would they? I know I'm risking a lot here. Any second now, the 9 of them will be in heaven getting ready to wipe the rest of us out. But I'm going to go out on a limb here anyway. And listen, I'm going to state the truth. Governments didn't care about these guys that started this organization. They haven't cared about the ones who followed them. And they don't care about the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses today. And they never will. I want to thank you for joining me this week. Check out this video. 1988 was a very good year. Wherever you may be well.